Oh, I know that sound. It's time for the Beer and News Report. Hi, and welcome to the Beer and News Report. Cheers. Today, I'm drinking Wit. This is by St. Bernard Brewery out of Belgium. This is a wheat beer, and I like wheat beers. And these are the same guys that make a wheat beer called Hoegaarden, and that's one of my favorite beers. Wheat beers are cloudy, as you can see from my glass. They usually go a little better with a twist of lemon or some orange. So for this one, I'm going to put some lemon in it. Let's just squeeze that in there. Okay. And these are usually really smooth. They go down nice and tasty. I think you should give it a try. Oh yeah, that hits the spot. Now, for the show, domino chain reactions. That's when one domino falls and hits another domino, making it fall, which then hits another domino, and so on and so on. This is a metaphor to explain what is happening in the world today. And you're probably thinking, hey, the whole domino thing, that started by Russia when they invaded the Ukraine, causing the price of oil to rise. That made shipping more expensive. So now everything's increasing in cost, which is causing food in turn to go up, and that's going to cause world famine and death. Well, it's true. That's all happening right now, and we'll see if world famine is the end result. But I'll go a step further and say that this started when President Biden got elected president. Wait, what? How can that be? Biden is such an easygoing guy. He didn't start any wars. I think you're thinking of Donald Trump, right? He's the troublemaker. All right, sure. President Trump is not known for his soft-handedness, but we're basically describing both sides of the same coin. Some say that the war started when Biden got elected. Others say that the war started when Trump lost the election. Can we all say that it's the same event, right? We're talking about the election, but you can even go as far back and blame President Obama or President George W. Bush for setting this all up. All right, hold on. Let's quit asking questions and get to some answers. So grab a beer, maybe a history book or a history YouTube channel, depending on your generation, and let's see what set up this war. All right? Cheers. Way back to the days of 9/11 in 2001, when the U.S. got attacked. Article 5 of the NATO treaty was activated. That states an attack on one member of NATO is considered an attack on all of its members. So the U.S. called out to all the other members of NATO to help them crush the attackers, and it worked. Other countries helped the U.S. with the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. We found the terrorists and either killed them or put them in jail. The point isn't that we got the terrorists, but that the other countries came together and fought a common cause. Now that built unity with NATO and made it stronger, which in turn made other non-NATO countries want to join in. Now in 2004, 7 countries joined NATO. Some of these bordered Russia. Now this was the first red flag, or falling domino, if you will. They got Russia's attention. NATO was growing while Russia was staying the same or shrinking. But how is Russia shrinking? Well, this is a falling domino from another path, but headed towards the same center point. After World War II, most of the countries in the world had a baby boom. And the U.S. was part of this too. We call it the baby boomers. In fact, I am a baby boomer. But the U.S. did something different that for some reason the rest of the world didn't do. When our baby boomers got old enough to make babies, they produced the millennial generation. It wasn't as big as the baby boomer generation, but it was way bigger than any other country's millennial generation. All right, boomers. We don't need any birth control. Cheers. So now, as the baby boomer generation ages and starts retiring, all the other countries are seeing a decline in their workforce except for the US. The millennials are replacing the boomers. So we have dominoes falling, but they are producing a positive effect. Another domino that the US has that to a larger extent no other country has is immigration. And let's face it, Russia doesn't entice that many people to immigrate to it. I mean, the only person I know who voluntarily immigrated to Russia was Edward Snowden. And he went there after leaking government secrets to the world. The end result is that the US population is increasing while the Russian population is decreasing. Thus, if your country's population is decreasing, you have fewer people to produce goods and fewer people to defend your country. So on one domino path, you have NATO, your enemy, getting bigger and closer to you. And then on another domino path, you have a declining population while your enemy's population is growing. Both domino paths are converging on you. That's not a comforting feeling. Cheers. So what can Russia do? Well, as the years go by, Putin stays in office, But President Bush gets turned out and President Obama comes in. Now, President Obama sees that NATO has grown and is more powerful, but he notices that most of the countries are relying on the U.S. to do the dirty work and not putting in their fair share. So the dominoes start falling on a new path towards the U.S. Obama has a meeting with the NATO countries and announces in public that he wants the NATO countries to put in more money and build up their defenses. Now, these countries balk and refuse to commit that much money. Now, Putin also sees this and thinks, well, wait a minute, maybe NATO isn't that strong or united after all. He sees the dominoes falling the way he wants. Then comes President Trump, and he brings a whole new set of dominoes. He's not going to accept that other NATO countries aren't putting in their fair share, and he starts pulling out troops from NATO. Now, Putin is elated because the dominoes are falling onto NATO. At the rate President Trump is going, by his second term, NATO will be dead, and all Putin has to do is set up some simple coups and install puppet governments in the countries that he wants that are next to Russia, which is basically all the new NATO countries. But Trump loses the election. Can you feel a domino start to fall around you? Yeah. Cheers. Okay. So here's where we're at. NATO is falling apart because Trump is refusing to help them since they are not putting in their fair share. But Trump lost the election and now President Biden is president. But Trump is saying that the election was stolen and that Biden really isn't the legitimate president. Now Putin sees this and figures, hold on a minute, this is the time to strike. NATO is weak and America is in a state of confusion. Basically, the dominoes are all lined up. So he attacks the Ukraine. And he does it for two reasons. One, Russia needs countries in between them and the European countries, or NATO basically, to act as a buffer in case war breaks out. And second, he wants to bring Russia back to the glory days of the USSR. Their border went all the way to Germany. Now, you may be thinking, why does Russia think that war is going to break out? Well, America doesn't have this fear because the only countries next to it are Mexico and Canada, and they're not going to attack anyone. But if you look at the history of Europe, there are tons of wars where countries have tried to invade Russia. There's fallen dominoes everywhere. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of the Mongols, the Ottoman Empire, Napoleon, and lastly, Hitler. So Russia has valid fears. Yeah, cheers. So plan A is to blitz in with the tanks, take over the capital, oust the president, and install a puppet government. Tops, this should take a week or two because they are following the same timeline of the German blitzkrieg of World War II. Actually, everyone thought this would only take a week or two. NATO's not going to stop them. Ukraine isn't a member. Russia controls Belarus and Crimea, so they have three sides covered. And then there's Ukraine. Basically, they don't have a navy or an air force, and their army is nothing to brag about. Again, it looks like the dominoes are all lined up. Even with the U.S. government sending out news flashes that the Russians are massing troops on the border for an impending attack, nobody believed it could be stopped. So Russia attacks, and they are so overconfident that they don't logistically prepare for it. This allows the Ukraine people with Molotov cocktails to shut down the supply lines, and with no gas, the Russian tanks have to stop. This is sort of like you have your domino set up and you push it, and halfway through, one of them falls the wrong way and misses the next domino, and the chain reaction stops. I hate when that happens. Yeah, cheers. Now the Ukraine people blow up their bridges and make some barricades. The men are drafted into the army and they hold off the attack. The US and NATO are amazed, as I'm sure the Russians are too. Instantly, arms are sent to the Ukraine to help them defend themselves. Since the Russian style of attack is to use tanks to break through the front lines, the US is sending in tank-killing missiles. And it works! So the US is setting up the dominoes for the Ukrainians to knock them over. Also, the US has sent over surface-to-air missiles, but you really don't attack with only airplanes. You need something on the ground to hold and defend the country that you've conquered. Air and artillery are used for bombardment, and this is to weaken the defenses and to really lower the morale of the people. Unbelievably, a month goes by, and there seems to be a stalemate. Russia hasn't advanced, and the Ukraine, because of the pleas made by President Zelensky, has the popular support of the world. Way to go, Ukraine. All right. So plan A didn't work. What is plan B? Plan B is to pull the troops from the north, where the capital is, and to send them to the east and the south. The goal is to hopefully flank the ground troops at Donetsk and to take Odessa. Basically, you're setting up a whole new domino path. Russia wants to build a buffer, so any land you can take on the east, this does that. Plus, a flanking maneuver to give them a win would be much needed. Now, taking Odessa would make Ukraine landlocked and put the economy in the hands of Russia. Any country knows that when you trade, the easiest way to do that is to move it through ships. Odessa is Ukraine's last port, so they would have to go through Russia to ship anything, meaning that all the dominoes have fallen and the game is over. Now, I may be getting a little ahead of myself, but there may be a plan C if Russia can take Odessa. Here's a map of Eastern Europe, and you can see that the next country after Ukraine is Moldova, and it's also not a member of NATO. Plus, it's a lot smaller than the Ukraine. But there's something else that's most likely driving Russia to Moldova. Have you ever heard of Transnistria? Transnistria is a region in Moldova between the Ukraine and the Dniester River that's controlled by Russia. Yeah, that's right. Russia is already in Moldova. That means that the dominoes are already set up. So if Russia can conquer Odessa and then take over Moldova, Ukraine for the most part is completely surrounded. All the dominoes are set in place. The north domino is Belarus. The east domino is Russia. The south domino is Crimea and Odessa. And the west domino is basically Moldova. Russia knows there's more than one way to skin a cat. Yeah, cheers. Now, if you watch the news, you know that they are saying that this is a war of democracy versus communism. Yeah, I totally agree with this. But there's more to it than that. Now, some skeptics are asking, why do we care about the Ukraine? Why are we spending our money there to help them when we have bigger problems over here? I want you to think back to 1998 when Apple sued Microsoft over their Windows software because they believed Microsoft stole it from Apple. Apple won, and Microsoft offered to pay the penalty by giving computers to elementary and high schools. Now, Apple objected to this, saying, hey, wait a minute, we already give computers to high schools and elementary schools. This is our territory. We don't want Microsoft going in because that's basically going to inflict more damage to our business. So in the end, Microsoft had to pay Apple. But now, how does this apply to the Russian-Ukraine war? Right now, the U.S. is giving anti-tank missiles called Javelins and anti-aircraft missiles called Stingers to the Ukraine. These weapons are turning the tide of the war for Ukraine. So much so that Russia has warned the U.S. to stop doing this or face dire consequences. But other NATO countries are seeing this and they're asking for the same missiles. And even Sweden and Finland want to join NATO after seeing what these missiles can do. This war is not only bringing NATO together, but it might be making it even bigger. What's really happening is the U.S. is doing a weapons marketing campaign via Ukraine for NATO membership, and it's working. All right, USA, cheers. Now, Poland has said that it's willing to give up its Russian-made tanks to the Ukraine. The deal would be that Poland gives their Russian-made tanks to the Ukraine, which already knows how to use them, and then America would replace them with US-made tanks. I don't think it would be for free, but it's most likely discounted. But even if it's discounted or for free, which you may say is crazy, but I want you to think about your computer printer. When you buy a computer printer, it's amazingly how cheap they are. They're almost free. But then you have to buy the ink for the printer. And that's where they get you, because you're constantly buying that stupid ink and it's expensive as hell. And every time you're printing off stuff, within no time, you run out of ink and have to buy more. I hate it. Now think of the tank as a printer, and the bombs that the tank shoots out is the ink. Now you have to train your soldiers. I mean, hopefully you don't go to war and have to use them, but you're constantly using up those bombs. So eventually you have to restock your tank with new bombs. So you call up the U.S., you give them your Capital One credit card number, and you say, hey, what's in your wallet? Dang, I could do that commercial. Cheers. Finally, tanks are also like cars, right? They have a bunch of moving parts. They break down. They need replacement parts and someone to repair them. They're going to have to go and get these parts and the training to use it from America. And the great thing about military parts is that they're priced like medical equipment. They're so expensive. I mean, that's half the reason you dread going to the doctor. Back into your head, you're thinking, how much is this going to cost me? But you have to do it. It's your health. Well, the same goes for the tanks. You have to do it because it's your national security. And you'll pay whatever the price is. On a side note, weapons can you think of them like an insurance policy or your internet provider, right? Once you choose a company, rarely do you change. Once you buy weapons from the U.S., you're not going to buy it from anywhere else. You're locked in. Think about it. How many companies have old and outdated software systems but don't want to make a change because it would cost too much, or the training would take too long, or you know what? We can get by. It's not that bad. All America has to do is get their military foot in the door and weapons business will be booming. Cheers. Well, as you can see, my beer is almost empty, and that means we're at the end of the show. If you want to contact me, I can reach at this email address, I'm sorry if I ruined Domino's for you. I usually play the game of Domino's rather than setting him up to do the chain reaction. In any case, I hope you liked the show. I hope you had a good time watching it. And if you did, please click that like button. Of course, if you want to get notified of the new show, you click that subscribe button and then click the bell icon next to it. This will notify you when a new show is posted. Till then, keep your beer cold and your interest hot. Cheers.